Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Daily Racing Form handicappers Mike Beer, Matt Bernier, and I will take a look at two Grade 1 stakes races at Santa Anita. The Gold Cup at Santa Anita, going a mile and a quarter for some older horses, and the Grade 1 Gamely Stakes for fillies and mares on the turf. We'll also take a look at the Grade 2 Monmouth Stakes on the grass on the Jersey Shore. JK, Jonathan Kinchin's play of the day, a pick 5 at Santa Anita on Saturday. David Aragona's Timeform US Spotlight focuses on Belmont Park's race number 4. Plus pedigree picks, tournament talks, horses to watch, best bets, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Mike Beer, NYRA analyst, you found something at beautiful Belmont Park.
Yeah, let's take a look at Arabian Beauty. She was a European import. For who else? Chad Brown. He's got all the good turf horses in New York. This filly's, it's a little bit different though. She began her career in Germany, ran second in a Group 1 in Italy. They aren't typically the real good Europeans. I wonder if this might not be a real good European though. She got a really good trip in this race, but that's not mutually exclusive to how she ran in here. She sat a perfect trip, but she also really ran and just crushes the Grade 3 Bogey in her first start over here for Chad Brown. First start with Lasix, obviously. I don't know. Listen, who knows where she fits in the pecking order in that stable? He's got every good turf horse in New York, but she's probably going to get a shot in a much bigger race next time, and I'm not so sure that she won't be up for it.
Chad Brown won 2 in the Bogey, by the way. Favorite and Flexibility finished second. Matt Bernier, you were really taken by a horse that Mike Beer spotlighted as a horse watch a while back at Oaklawn, but you are on the train. You're a believer in this Steve Asmussen 3-year-old.
I wasn't initially, but Matoli continues to win me over. We're going to take a look at the Chick Lang right now. This was over Preakness weekend, and obviously it's very sloppy, but there's a part of me that thought that the slop might actually get him beat because he kind of flopped down at Oaklawn over the slop. Well, guess what? You want to talk about facile. Hands and heels the whole way. This is on cruise control, and the fact that Steve Asmussen says he's really not a good workhorse and he really needed a race like this to get him ready for a race like the Woody Stevens. He's got back-to-back triple-digit buyers. I'm starting to think this is a serious racehorse.
My horse watch is also a repeat offender, so to speak. I highlighted Pink Lloyd last year towards the beginning of his 8-for-8 championship run, mentioned that he was going to be one of the top sprinters in Canada, and once in a while I'm even right. Let's take a look at his most recent performance, his second start of 2018, and Pink Lloyd just keeps rolling along. This is his 10th consecutive victory, and he actually got in a little bit of trouble in this race. On the backstretch, he was in the 2-path in between horses. The leader ducked out, bounced into Pink Lloyd. He pinballed off a horse to his outside. As you see, it doesn't faze him at all. He goes on to win comfortably at 1-20 odds with a 101 buyer speed figure, and he will head for his 11th consecutive victory, likely on June the 3rd in the Achievement Stakes at Woodbine. I would love to see Pink Lloyd, a horse that has never raced on dirt in his career, get tested in races, major sprint races at Saratoga or even the Breeders' Cup, but his connections are quite content right now to just keep the ball rolling as he creeps ever closer to the $1 million mark. That's Pink Lloyd. You're not going to get rich on him in the Achievement, but sometimes in these horses to watch segment, you just want to highlight a really talented racehorse. Let's get to some handicapping. The DRF Bet Saturday Race of the Day is a tremendous edition of the Grade 1 Gold Cup at Santa Anita. Let's take a look at the field for Saturday's DRF Bets Race of the Day. It's the Grade 1 of the Gold Cup at Santa Anita, going a mile and a quarter. $500,000 is the purse. You can access free formulator past performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. And for expanded stakes previews of many of the long weekend's graded stakes, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Matt, Bob Baffert obviously on fire. He has gotten Dr. Door good.
I don't know if this is a scenario where it was just Dr. Door wanting to go long all along and they'd been keeping him at sprint distances, or what the situation is, but his most recent effort in the Californian, I got to be honest with you, I can't find any faults with this effort. I know it was against lesser horses, but I love the way that he did this. He's down on the inside. He's already taken over the lead. He's got a 108 buyer staring in the face coming here into the Gold Cup. I just liked everything about this. I feel like this is the kind of horse that perhaps now he's just matured into a nice 5-year-old, and Baffert's got him good. Look, you could do crazier things than go against Bob Baffert. I think there's a scenario here where maybe he's just the now horse.
Probably a nice strip coming, sitting just off the speed to the outside, and he'll be in prime contention turning into the stretch. 1.25 miles, a question mark for many of these horses. Mike, how do you feel about 1.25 miles for your top selection? A horse who's run well at the distance, has been thrown into some tough spots in his career, but might get the right pace set up.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about 1.25 miles for any of these horses. We'll see if Pavel can do a little bit better in the Gold Cup this time. He's tried it a few times before. He hasn't had that much success, but he just feels like he's a really talented horse to me, and I don't know if maybe they've asked this horse for too much already. We'll see what happens, but they've done a lot of racing with him in a lot of really tough spots, and I think there are occasions where he's run really well, and I actually feel like one of those occasions is his most recent start in the Dubai World Cup, where he was always, 3 or 4 wide around that track that had a really strong rally. Finished maybe a length or two behind West Coast. We're going to go back to a different replay for him, the San Pasquale. This is 2 starts back for him. He just didn't get a great trip. I'm not sitting here suggesting he was going to win this race, but he might have won this race. He was over behind horses for a long way. Mario Gutierrez finally had to move him out to the clear late in the game. I think he was hampered by the trip that he got in this race. More than anything else, guys, I feel like this is a little bit of an open race, and he's 4th choice on the morning line. I'm willing to give him one more chance in here.
That's what's known as being behind a wall of horses in that replay we just saw. City of Light and Accelerate, the 1-2 finishers of the Oaklawn Handicap, they will renew hostilities one more time. And City of Light's kind of an underrated horse, isn't he? He rolled through the Grade 1 Malibu for 3-year-old sprinters, rolled through the Grade 1 Triple Brand for older sprinters, and then they tested him, shipped him out of Southern California and stretched him out around 2 turns for the first time. I have to admit, I was dubious about his ability to get 1 1/8 miles. Well, guess what? He gets 1 1/8 miles just fine. Let's turn into the stretch of the Oaklawn Handicap. City of Light had to break from the far outside post. He's 3-4 path all the way around the track. He's taken the measure of the talented Accelerate turning into the stretch, and he always has Accelerate's number going down to the wire. This was a rock-solid performance for a horse that showed that he could win without the lead. Many of his prior efforts, his best prior efforts, have come when he was on or just off the pace. He can make the lead in here if he wants. If Little Scotty or if someone else wants it, he can sit just off. The 1.25 miles is a giant question mark, but I liked what I saw from City of Light in the Oaklawn Handicap, and I think he gets that extra furlong. Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pick segment coming up, talking about all the latest news in the breeding world, and then we've got Peter Thomas Fornatel's Tournament Talk segment. What else is he going to talk about? Tournaments. Then come back. We've got lots more handicapping on Out of the Gate.
Hey everyone, Nicole Russo coming to you for Out of the Gate. I want to start talking about some of this year's freshman sires and how to handicap their offspring, especially as we're approaching summer and fall racing, when the stakes will start and these horses will have more opportunities to really show their stuff. Obviously, we've discussed Will Take Charge and Cairo Prince, both commercial standouts of this group, at length, and will continue to do so, both off the mark with their first winners recently. But today, I want to focus a little bit on Mucho Macho Man and his showing at the Fasig-Tipton Mid-Atlantic 2-year-old sale this week. Now, Mucho Macho Man was graded placed around 2 turns late in his 2-year-old year, was 3rd in the Kentucky Derby and a graded winner as a 3-year-old, but really hit his stride as an older horse. He scored his first Grade 1 win in the fall of his 5-year-old year, subsequently won the Breeders' Cup Classic in game fashion over an outstanding field. So with that in mind, I do expect his progeny to be later developing and to love distance. Now, he did get his first winner at Keeneland in the hands of Wesley Ward, Mucho Amor, posting a game win at 4.5 furlongs. But I do feel that his better runners are going to come along in the summer and fall as the distances get longer, especially with a later developing pattern, and that you'll want to keep in mind as you handicap them. I think we saw some hints of how these horses are going to develop at the Fasig Mid-Atlantic sale this week. He had this colt breeze the fastest 1/4 mile of the Breeze Show by a full 2/5 of a second. Made sense to me if I'm looking at this colt that he'd be better off going that 1/4 instead of the traditional furlong. He's a strong, longer-bodied colt, much like Mucho Macho Man. I saw this from a lot of his yearlings last year. They're leggy, they're long-bodied like their sire. This colt subsequently sold for $625,000 to Michael Lund Peterson. It was the fourth highest price of the sale overall and the highest price for a freshman sire. Now, this colt had been a buyback at just $55,000 at the OBS March sale 2 months ago. Contender Kip Elzer says that the colt, who was an April foal, really matured in the 2 months between the sales. That's certainly one indicator how these runners by this young stallion will develop and mature. You can get a lot of handicapping clues out of these 2-year-old sales if you pay attention. We'll look more at the rest of this freshman sire class. It's really a deep group, and how to evaluate their runners throughout the year here on Out of the Gate, as well as the DRF breeding report. But for now, let's get you over to Peter for some tournament talk.
Peter Thomas Fornatale back with you on Out of the Gate to talk about the first ever World Horse Players Tour event. It went down at Santa Anita last weekend, and it was just a ton of fun. Thanks so much to the players who came out, supported us on social media, etc., supported us at the windows, at the contest, outside of the contest. We bet a lot of money. We had a lot of fun. And at the end of the day, Philadelphia wins the day. We've been talking a lot lately in contests about the success of players from Canada. This time it was Philadelphia. Philly Joe Metka gets the job done in a brilliantly played tournament where really, in a lot of ways, the story of Joe's tournament was other people not hitting things. And what I mean by that, to sneak into the 8th and final spot at our first ever live bankroll final table on Saturday, he sat Chile the last 2 races, and other people didn't hit and pass him. Therefore, he was able to advance to Sunday. Starts off on Sunday, has a couple of good plays early, gets out of that dangerous short stack position up into the safety zone, then eventually up into the lead. And then the last 2 races, he swings and misses, but everybody else swung and missed too. In the end, he hangs on, nets right around 6 figures in cash and prizes for his efforts. And that was just one of the many amazing stories we had. 23-year-old Justin Mustari of Chicago made a great run, did some strategical outthinking at the end of the contest of some seasoned players like Tony Joe and Nick Tamaro to end up getting 2nd overall. And just the composition of this final table, it's going to be so great when you see it on TV. In addition to the players I've talked about already, you had a local hero trying to make good in Jason Avila. That'll be a fun story to follow. Garrett Skiba goes to the final table as the clear overdog, the chip leader with the best resume, and sees his tournament upended late, but so great to have him there at the final table. Tom Arndt, a guy who really fires, sort of represents the horse player you think about when you think about horse players in a lot of ways. A 60-year-old guy who really likes to fire, lives in Arizona, travels to Santa Anita. So many stories. I'm even leaving out some good ones when it comes to the final table, but you'll see it all when we put this pilot together. There'll be more news on that. If you're looking for more news about the World Horse Players Tour in general, I suggest you follow on Twitter at Horseplayer Tour. Going to be more information there in the coming weeks and months. But all in all, it was a great event. Fun weekend on DRF tournaments as well. Good stuff coming up this weekend, Monday being the big day where a lot of people will be looking at this Monmouth contest. Monmouth Pick Your Prize actually closes this weekend. If you want to buy tickets, buy them by the end of the day. Saturday, you can contact Brian Skirka at Monmouth Park to do just that. I'll have an article up soon. The easiest way to find it, go to tournaments.drf.com. Click the news drop down. You can get all the specifics about Monmouth and other action at DRF tournaments this weekend. That's all I've got. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned for more Out of the Gate.
DRF Bets is your home for online horse racing and wagering. Bet from any device with data, analysis, videos, and intuitive wagering all weaved together. It's everything you need to win, plus a $100 deposit match bonus. DRF Bets, the only way to play. Welcome back to Out of the Gate. A really nice card at Monmouth Park on Saturday. Couple graded stakes races, bundled stakes races all over the place. Let's take a look at the field for the Grade 2 $200,000 Monmouth Stakes at 1 1/8 on the turf. For expanded stakes previews of many of the weekend's graded stakes races, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. We cover every horse in every race. No surprise that Chad Brown well represented with the 2 morning line favorites, the 3 money multiplier, the 2 projected. We're going to try to beat Chad in here, Mike, and you're going to do it with a horse that doesn't have a lot of speed. And I got to ask you, where's this horse getting paced to run at in this spot?
Yeah, we'll see if this race sets up for him. More than anything else, I really like this distance for Divisadero. The pace, it may not be there for him. We'll see how far out of it he has to come from. I just think he's a really good horse, and I like this distance for him. We're going to go back and show his last race from last year. This is the Grade 1 Shadwell Turf Mile. It's only a mile. I think this is a little short for him, and it's especially short for Divisadero when they go 24, 24, 24, and then come home the final quarter in 23, and he's trying to make up ground. I would say he finishes gamely, if evenly, in this race, but it's not a terrible performance. And I just feel like the 1 1/8 really works for him. He's a horse who's always run well fresh. Maybe the pace won't be there for him, but if he gets any kind of a setup at all, I think this is the right spot for him. And I actually feel like it benefits him having that race at Pimlico last week rained off the turf at 1:16. This is a better distance for him.
You can argue that he is the class of the race. He just has to overcome a difficult pace scenario off the layoff. Matt, were you as shocked as I was to see that Force the Pass was back in the entries off such a long layoff? I mean, heck, he was one of the better 3-year-old turf horses in all of 2015, and while he didn't win in 2016, he ran some big races. It was nice to see him back, and it was nice to see him back in the winner's circle.
Yeah, I have to be honest, I'm surprised they even came back with him because he was a Grade 1 winner as a 3-year-old, but he was gone for a year and a half, and he came back in his first start back in the Cliffhanger. We're going to take a look at that right now. He gets involved with a decent horse, Irish Straight, who's on the front end right now. On the far outside, here comes Force the Pass. When he's right, he's capable of running big efforts. Now, from a figure standpoint, this race came back on the light side, but I'm inclined to believe that the horse needed one off of a year and a half layoff. And if he takes a step forward, he's got a little bit of a tactical advantage on the likes of Divisadero and some of these other contenders. And maybe he gets a little bit lost in the shuffle. He may not be what he once was, but if he can get back to 85, 90% of what he once was, maybe he's got a puncher's chance at a decent number.
I think you make a great point about his tactical speed, and that's one of the reasons why I went with my top selection, the number 7, Frostmore. And I picked him last week in the Dixie. Of course, that race got washed off, but this race might even have a better pace situation for Frostmore. Force the Pass has a little bit of speed. Dr. Mounty has a little bit of speed, but they're not exactly burners, nor is Frostmore. But I think if Frostmore wants the lead, Joel Rosario can take it, and if not, he'll be sitting up close to a very slow pace. Let's go back to this horse's seasonal debut at Gulfstream. He got a very nice trip against inferior competition. He finished the race off well enough to win, and then he was kind of thrown to the wolves a little bit against Heart to Heart in the Makers 46 Mile at Keeneland, a race in which he was wired. He flattened out a little bit in that race, which makes me think that perhaps Christophe Clement is slowly getting him back to his groove. This will be his 3rd start of the form cycle, and as with Matt's horse, Force the Pass, I think we're going to get the jump on Mike's horse, Divisadero, turning into the stretch. Frostmore already a graded stakes winner at this 1 1/8. We'll move from New Jersey to Southern California, but we'll stay on the turf for the Gamely Stakes coming up next. Here's the field for the co-feature at Santa Anita on Saturday. It's the Grade 1 Gamely Stakes for fillies and mares, and we already have a big scratch that was announced on Thursday afternoon. The expected favorite, the number 5 Uni from the Brown Barn, scratched, sick. She's out of the race. It changes the dynamics a little bit. For expanded stakes previews of the Gamely and many of the other graded stakes races all weekend long, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Matt, some very familiar names in this division, including Madame Dancelot, back to Santa Anita, where she excels.
Yeah, going starts back to the Santa Ana. Tremendous effort from her. We'll take a look at that now. You also had Midnight coming out of this as well. Really the ride on Madame Dancelot. It was the difference. You see her splitting horses right in 3 inch of ground. Going to split, come with a giant finish. No disrespect to Midnight Crossing, but if you're taking a horse out of this race, I think it has to be Madame Dance-A-Lot with that wicked turn of foot.
And that is the kind of turn of foot that Madame Dance-A-Lot will show when you give her pace and a good trip like that. Unfortunately, with her running style, a lot of times she doesn't get pace, and a lot of times she has to go around horses, losing significant ground. One horse that shouldn't have to worry about the trip, Mike, is the number 7 Hawksmoor, because we believe that she can be forwardly placed, if not outright on the lead. I want to ask you about her most recent start, because she was coming off a little bit of a layoff. She was a heavy favorite. Yes, she was chasing a fast pace, but that fast pace was set by a 99-to-1 shot. Let's turn into the stretch of that race and take us through Hawksmoor's final quarter mile. Were you disappointed that she lost this race?
Oh yeah, she's not supposed to lose this race. It is a layoff for her. It's just her first start back, so I don't think it's a race that you look at and you feel like, well, you have to absolutely win. On the other hand, she's 1-5 in here against horses that she's just better than. So at the end of the day, this is a disappointing loss. You're going to see her just get nailed right on the wire here. As a starting off point, it's fine. She probably should have won. She didn't. Obviously, if you like her on Saturday, you're thinking she's going to take a step forward off of that race. I think the 1 1/8 is a good distance for her. There's not a ton of pace in this race, so I think she's going to get the right trip in here. Listen, I would have taken Uni on top if she was running in this race. She's scratching. I scratch into Hawksmoor, but you know what? I'm not that disappointed to have her. I think she's the horse to beat in here.
Matt, your loyalty was rewarded last time out. You've always believed in Beau Recall as a nice graded stakes mare in Southern California, and you can't argue with the last race. She powered home.
Now, perhaps it was the mile distance that really suited her, but her effort in the Royal Heroine we're going to look at right now, this is about as impressive a late finish as you're going to find from a horse. I love everything that Joel Rosario did this day, guides her out into the clear, and you can see a couple other common foes that she'll face again on Saturday, Madam Stripes and Sophie P. But look at her level off and finish, and something that I just find fascinating, her final 2 quarter miles. She finished in 22:75 and 22:84. She actually ran the third quarter faster than the fourth quarter. Maybe it was the mile. Maybe that's what she's wanted all along, and we got to go 9 furlongs on Saturday. But I got to be honest, if she finishes that way, she'll be right there at the end.
I think the confidence boost of dropping down in class this year has really figured it out for Beau Recall. She was in tough grade 1 after grade 1 after grade 1. They sprinted her on the turf. That distance was too short. They found the right class level last time out, and her confidence should be sky high. I'm with Mike on this one. I want to be on or near the lead. I want Hawksmoor second off the layoff. I think she can control this pace. And what have we been saying pretty much every time we talk about Southern California filly and mare turf races? We want the fresh face from the East Coast, and that's Hawksmoor, who did run on the West Coast 2 starts back in the Matriarch. She ran second, but it took an East Coast invader from the Brown Barn off limits to beat her. I'm going to go with Hawksmoor as my top selection, along with Mike, in the Gamely Stakes. JK's play of the day, he has a pick 5 at the Great Race Place, and then David Aragona's Timeform US Spotlight focuses on a really good betting race at Belmont Park. Let's go to those segments right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. Checking in from the planet Texas. We're back from the Preakness. The World Horse Players Tour debuted last week. A big success. Looking forward to getting that out to the people to check out. Meanwhile, let's get some action out in Southern California and starting the pick 5, starting with the Santa Anita Gold Cup Grade 1 event. Love a horse in here. We're going to single City of Light. As a single A horse, we'll use Accelerate as a B horse. City of Light's the type of horse that I was hoping might show up in the Met Mile with his unbelievable one-turn races that he's performed in this year with the Malibu and also the Triple Bend. But he actually even ran really big in the Oaklawn Handicap going around 2 turns. The Connections decided to stay home for the 1 1/4 race instead of waiting a couple of weeks to ship out east to run in the Met Mile. I think that's going to be a good decision. I think this horse will relax a little bit more as the pace slows down a little bit, going longer, and I think he'll be extremely dangerous in here. For whatever reason, if the 1 1/4 experiment with City of Light does not work, I think Accelerate will get the job done. These are the only 2 I'll need in the first leg of the late pick 5 at Santa Anita. In race 2, I'm going to use a little bit equally here. I'm going to use the 4, the 5, and the 6. Obviously, we'll talk about the favorite first. It's in the post, the 6 horse. That horse is always runs huge in these kind of longer distance turf races. Ran well at Keeneland last time, outside of an inside favoring turf course. The turf course at Keeneland was good. Inside was good a majority of the meet. That horse ran big from the outside. May have appeared to hang a little bit, but he was closing into into One Go All Go, who came back and ran good again. So he's actually a pretty good horse. And then what have you in Kinji Storm? What have you has never been out of the money going a mile and an eighth. That helps me think that the mile and a quarter shouldn't be too big of a problem for him. Talented horse who seems to have found his form again last time out in the Grade 3 American turf. And then also I'm going to use Kinji Storm, who's actually run at a mile and a quarter before. They even tried him at a mile and 7/8. So someone along the line thought that not one at a mile and a quarter, and second at a mile and a quarter, but has run at a mile and 7/8. And someone somewhere along the line thought this horse could stretch out. Both of those two horses, What Have You and Kinji Storm, are both tactical enough. If someone's to get loose, I think one of them could be dangerous. But if a closer's going to win, to me, it'll be It's in the Post. On to race 7. It's a little maiden race in the middle of some of these stakes races. I'm going to use Baby Gronk as a single A horse, and then I'll use the 1 and the 2 other horses that have shown some speed and also run some nice figures down on the inside. Baby Gronk's running big numbers. He ran a 102 time form and a 103 time form, adding the extra half furlong, going from 5.5, well, from 6 to 5.5, and then to 6.5. That's a little bit of a question. We'll see what happens there. But on figures alone, he looks like he should be pretty tough here. On to race 8, the Grade 1 Gamely. When I woke up this morning, I wanted to single Uni. Unfortunately, turns out she got a little bit of an illness, so she won't be running here. I'm going to change my thinking a little bit and spread a little bit more. I'm going to use the 1, Madame Dancelot, off of her effort in the Distaff Mile. Soft ground, raining, back out to California. She clearly likes it firm. The same can be said about the outside filly, the 8, Madame Stripes. Same idea. Didn't run embarrassingly bad there. But at the same time, it was raining, and maybe the softer cut in the ground wasn't something that she liked. Going to use her as well. And then the 7, Hawksmoor. Should be forwardly placed. I like Hawksmoor more in East Coast races because the paces are usually a little bit slower. This race, obviously, in Southern California, should still find a way where there'll be some horse forward. It always seems to happen. But her tactical ability, her class, is one that if she can find herself loose on this firm turf course, I think she could be pretty tough. So I'm going to use those 3 horses, the 1, the 7, and the 8. And then on to the last race, we're going to also do another single A horse with the 7. It's a New Year, another horse that ran a really big figure last time, going 2 turns. Now is going to cut back a little bit, but has shown some ability to be forwardly placed. And the idea that they're cutting this one back, I think, is something that you might want to lean on. I'm also going to use the 4, Imagine I Am Fastest, and then also the 10, Flynn. Those are other horses that have shown some numbers, showed some ability, shown some pace, and those are things I like to look for when we're looking to these maiden 30s, horses that are going to be forwardly placed. When that's the difference between a maiden 30 and a maiden special weight. The maiden special weights keep going. The maiden 30s get a little bit tired late. Good luck. We'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm David Aragona for this week's Timeform US Spotlight. We're going to be taking a look at the 4th race on Saturday at Belmont Park. It's a $40,000 claimer for horses that haven't won 2 races lifetime, going 6 furlongs on the turf. Some cheaper claiming horses, but there's a pretty clear favorite in this race, the number 3 horse, Charlie River, who's dropping out of some races at Gulfstream. We'll take a look at the entire field here, and let's go right into the Timeform US Pace Projector, because that favorite, Charlie River, is predicted to be in sort of a stalking position. He's the number 3 horse. The number 2 horse, All Clear, making his first start on turf, is the one that's predicted to be up close to the pace. Outside of those 2 and the long shot River Knight, the number 8, there's not a ton of speed in this race, so the pace projector is predicting a situation that's likely to favor those horses that are up close to the pace in the early going. Let's take a look at the PPs of that likely horse that's going to go off as the shortest price, Charlie River. Going out for the Christophe Clement stable, just been facing some better horses down in Florida. He sprinted earlier on in his career. His first 3 starts in this country, he was going 6 furlongs, 5 furlongs on the turf. He stretched out to 2 turns for his last 2 races, broke his maiden in a maiden claiming race 2 back, then just trying tougher company against starter allowance horses last time, and he went out to set a very fast pace. You see the Timeform US pace figures for that last race. They're all color-coded red, really high numbers relative to the final raw speed figure, which resulted in a high 105 Timeform US speed figure for that race. That number makes him awfully tough in here, and as I said, he's proven he can go shorter, so he makes a ton of sense in this race, but I think there are some other horses to look at who will be slightly better prices. The runner that's going to go off as the second choice is probably Major Force. I'm a little bit against this runner. He just hasn't really proven that he's a sprinter. For Linda Rice, he's turning back in distance as well. But unlike Charlie River, he doesn't have that turf sprint form early in his career. He did make his debut going short on the dirt, but he was badly outrun in the early going that day. Just doesn't have a whole lot of speed. He came back off a long layoff 2 races back at Aqueduct, and he ran fine to finish second that day, but was beaten by a horse Ode to the Hunt, who just isn't very good and doesn't win that often. Last time out, Major Forces made the favorite, and I thought his performance was pretty dull. He was a little wide that day, but he just didn't show the same late kick that he usually produces in his races. So he's a horse that's clearly had some physical issues during his career, and I just don't think he's moving in the right direction. If I'm going to take a shot against Charlie River, I want to do it with that first-time turfer, All Clear, the horse that was predicted to be on the early lead in this race. I think he's a little bit dangerous getting on turf for the first time. He ran a competitive speed figure in his debut, albeit on dirt, back at Aqueduct last November. I thought he won that race well. Then his next start out, he ran fine, took a step backwards last time out against Starter Allowance Company. That was back on March 11th. He's been off for over 2 months since then. Perhaps they've been waiting to get him back in a turf to get him into a turf race, because he does have some sneaky turf pedigree. While the dam never tried turf, her dam was a turf horse. All 3 of her wins came on turf. And this horse's sire, Country Day, has actually gotten off to a pretty solid start with his turf runners. You might remember Country Day during his racing career was an accomplished turf sprinter. I think he actually finished second in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. And Country Day has won with 7 of his first 35 starters on turf so far. He's actually the sire of that horse, Will Call, that won that stakes race on Churchill Downs, that Churchill Downs stakes race on Derby weekend. So I think All Clear, that is, could have a shot making his first start on turf. There are some signs that he might handle it, and he's going to be the speed in this race. So I'm going to try to get him to wire the field at a decent price, around 4 or 5 to 1, using him with the favorite Charlie Ripper. So it's all clear for me in the 4th race at Belmont on Saturday. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Mike Beer, NYRA analyst, you're taking in the ocean breezes on the Jersey Shore this Saturday with your best bet. Sin! Sacrilege!
Jersey race, but New York horse, stakes race on the grass down there at Monmouth Park to Boiling Springs is race number 10. I'm going to take Coffee Crush shipping down to New Jersey for Jimmy Toner. This horse was entered last weekend at Belmont. They came off the turf in a stakes race, so he's going to go down to Plan B here at Monmouth Park. I like Coffee Crush. Her debut last year, she was very green at the end of the year, very late at Belmont Park, raced very greenly. Felt like she started to figure out at the end of the race and made up some ground. And then they came back in this race at the end of the year at Aqueduct, and she was much more professional. Right on the lead in this race, moved away from this field through the turn, and then she finishes it off through this stretch. This was a nice step forward for her to end her 2-year-old campaign. She came back for 1 start so far this year. Now, it was in a stakes race. She finished last in a 5-horse field, but she was in against significant form, a really talented Chad Brown horse, and she chased that horse all the way around the track and then just threw in the towel late. I think she needed that race. This is a much better spot for her. She ships down to New Jersey. She can't get away from Chad Brown. He's got the 2 favorites in this field, but I'm hoping that she needed that first race off the left and she takes a step forward in her second start.
Matt, you're going north of the border with a horse that you and I have always thought has had immense potential.
Yeah, the featured event Saturday at Woodbines, the Eclipse Stakes, a mile and 16th on the Tapeta. Tizislam is a relatively newly turned 4-year-old. And you're right, Dan, you and I have always liked him a little bit, but I think you got to think a little bit outside the box if you want to like him in a spot like this. We're going to go back to his Ontario Derby last year as a 3-year-old. And really, this was his last run on synthetic. And this is a horse I just feel is an entirely different animal when he runs on the Tapeta or on the synthetic surface as opposed to when he runs on turf. When he runs on turf, he really is just kind of a nondescript blah sort of horse. You get him on the synth, he can run a little bit. This is him defeating Holy Helena. We know what she did in the Queen's Plate. I just kind of feel like he's an opportunity, or this is an opportunity anyway, for a horse. He's going to offer some value. You've got the old hard hitters, Are You Kidding Me, and Mel Mitch and Gigantic Breeze. I want to try to beat them all with Tizislam.
I'm going to go to Parks, race number 7. Number 6, Sweet Like Candy, kind of an anti-favorite play. Let's talk about the 2 favorites in here really quickly. 1, the number 7, Forest Lily, 5-2, coming down from New York for trainer Gary Contessa, a horse that was listed as a vet scratch last month and is only 2 for 23 lifetime. I don't want any part of her. And the favorite, No Picnic, more closer to the inside, is a horse that has no speed whatsoever, and I think prefers 6 furlongs furlongs than 7. I want speed in a race like this. There's not a lot of pace. Let's go back to Sweet Like Candy's most recent win, and that's a long time ago, over a year ago, but it was at 7 furlongs and it was on the lead, and she did have to take pace heat early before shaking clear and then going on to a very professional score with a 74 Beyer speed figure. She backed up this race with a runner-up effort against open non-winners of one other than allowance horses going a 2-turn mile, a distance too far for Sweet Like Candy. Then the wheels must have fallen off, because this barn then ran her twice on turf. She can't stand up on turf, and then she went away for 314 days. She returned off that layoff in her most recent start, and she set a fast pace. Color-coded red 119 Timeform US pace rating for the first fraction, and she was in between horses battling it out for the lead before understandably paying the price. It's her second start back. I think she can get to the lead in this race, and she's dropping into this condition 25,000. Remember, this is a non-winners of 3 life. The horse that beat her last time out has already won 9 times and is winning 3 in a row when he beat this horse last time out. I'll go with Sweet Like Candy, 8-1. Parks, race number 7, number 6. We thank you for watching this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Stay tuned for all of Daily Racing Form's offerings on social media. For the latest DRF TV offerings, follow on Twitter at DRF Video, and of course, for the latest from America's Turf Authority, Daily Racing Form, follow at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.